What's the legal claim that you believe you have against CNN regarding polling data?
Look, no pollster in the world would stand behind this as a legitimate poll according to industry standards. So why would CNN
What
publish
industry
this?
standards?
Why? For one reason.
This poll is in line
Brian,
with
and
other
that's
networks'
because they
polls.
want to undermine.
Pretty much every poll
and
shows
let me
Trump
finish.
losing
They
to
want
Biden.
to undermine. That's not true. You polled adults, not registered voters, not likely voters, but just
That's a normal
adults.
polling procedure.
And that is not the industry standard. And so that's showing President Trump 14 points behind when a Zogby poll that was released June 11th that actually polled likely voters, not just adults, that you had the audacity to publish, showed President Trump 8 points ahead. In other polls, they're showing reasonably tied. This poll was so skewed that the margin of error was 14 points behind. The only reason that CNN published this is because it's junk science. You know that, and you know that if your poll had showed the inverse and showed Joe Biden 14 points behind, you wouldn't have published this poll. And so
of
what
course,
America
whatever poll is
understands, Brian,
commissioned
is that you're not journalists.
published.
You're not putting out facts. You are putting out activism,
So
and
is this
that's
the strategy?
why you're fake news and
is
why
this
your
what you're going
ratings
to do
are so
between
bad.
now and November 3rd? Anti-media strategy all the way to Election Day?
Peddlers
you
of
understand
false
that, like, someday you're going to regret
you have
this,
for the
right?
past 3.5 years.
Someday you're going to regret this when your kids and your grandkids
No, I'm
look
standing
back
up
at this
for
time
truth.
and you use slurs and smears
now
like
you're going
fake
to the
news
personal attacks.
to
That's
hurt
when
news
you know you've
outlets.
lost
No,
the
but
debate, Brian, is
Jenna,
when you can't even come on
I think in
facts
10 or
and
20
truth.
years,
No,
if we just
let's
sit down
come
and talk
on.
about
That's
this, you're
really
going to
low,
recognize how
Brian.
damaging it was. How damaging it was to use terms like fake news,
and
to
you know what?
attack
I'm gonna
journalists who were
recognize
trying to do their
in
jobs.
15 or 20 years, you're not trying to do your job. You're not a journalist, Brian. You're an activist. That's the problem. You have an agenda, and your agenda is anti-Trump. The American people see through that, and they are very grateful that this president is finally holding the fake news media accountable because you're activists. You're not reporting fact and truth. You won't even say that as a general
the reason why I think
a
it's helpful to have
factually
these
false
conversations
statement shouldn't ever appear in a media outlet.
Folks have gotten used to these alternative realities, and I think it's important we see there are alternative realities. And Jenna, I appreciate you coming on to talk about it.
How can you as a journalist sit there, Brian, and you know what? I want to
One
wish
more bit of
President
Trump
Trump
news
a very
to share
happy
with you?
birthday from CNN.
If you're wondering the extent to which this administration will go to protect Trump's ego, the answer is apparently sending its lawyers on national television to defend taking legal action against a news outlet for publishing the results of a poll that Trump didn't like. This is all in reference to the fact that CNN published a poll showing Biden leading Trump by 14 points. The Trump team is claiming that the poll didn't have a high enough percentage of Republican respondents, whereas CNN maintains that the percentage of Republicans is consistent with other major polls. And yet, even so, the White House tried to flex its authoritarian muscles and threaten legal action against CNN, a move that backfired pretty spectacularly. Because CNN's general counsel responded by saying, quote, "To my knowledge, this is the first time in its 40-year history that CNN has been threatened with legal action because an American politician or campaign did not like CNN's polling results. To the extent we have received legal threats from political leaders in the past, they have typically come from countries like Venezuela or other regimes where there is little or no respect for a free and independent media. Your letter is factually and legally baseless. It is yet another bad faith attempt by the campaign to threaten litigation to muzzle speech it does not want voters to read or hear. Your allegations and demands are rejected in their entirety." Nothing like trying to quietly stifle a rough poll and you come away having been compared to Venezuela in a tweet that swept across the entire internet. The White House has the unenviable ability to take whatever bad news they don't like, complain about it in such a way that even if you weren't aware of whatever they were complaining about before, you definitely will be now. It's called the Streisand effect, but honestly, Trump has employed it so frequently, I wouldn't be surprised if a name change was in order. We've seen it from Trump's attacks on an ad he didn't like from the Lincoln Project, of which Kellyanne Conway's husband is a founder, which only made the embarrassing ad go even more viral. We're seeing it right now with Trump's temper tantrum over critical coverage of his labored walk down a ramp at the West Point Military Academy commencement ceremony. He tweeted, "The ramp that I descended after my West Point commencement speech was very long and steep, had no handrail, and most importantly, was very slippery. The last thing I was going to do is fall for the fake news to have fun with. Final 10 feet, I ran down to ground level. Momentum." Which only further served to publicize this clip. When Trump proclaimed himself a marketing genius, I guess I never realized that what he meant was he could make the worst possible coverage of himself go the most viral. As for Trump's attorney Jenna Ellis, after having been wholly unable to give any credible legal basis for the lawsuit beyond the same tired calls of fake news, she did try to give her attack on CNN one final go. She took to Twitter writing, "Hey Brian Stelter, still want to stand by CNN's junk science? None of the polls except yours show such false numbers." In other words, she was trying to debunk a CNN poll showing Biden leading Trump by 14 points nationally by pointing to a different poll showing them tied. The only problem is, this isn't a national poll, it's an Arkansas poll. Because nothing owns the libs quite like promoting a poll showing Trump now tied in a state he won by 27 points in 2016. The fact is that if the White House spent more time actually governing than threatening legal action against networks who dare present unflattering data, his poll numbers might not be as bad as they are. And yet because their sole priority is insulating the ego of a very fragile 74-year-old man, it doesn't look like actual governing is going to replace their quasi-authoritarian tactics anytime soon. And that probably doesn't bode well for his poll numbers. If you like that video, please check out my brand new podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, where I'll cover the most important political stories of the week and interview major players in the world of politics. Available now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Check it out and subscribe now.